The new renovations were finally done. The first thing my husband did was change the locks, move his mother in, and order me to serve her. He thought I'd break down and obey. I didn't. I just quietly sold the house. The next morning, he collapsed on the ground. "Where's the house?" The day our newly renovated home was complete, my husband, on his own authority, changed the locks, ushered his mother into the master bedroom, and threw a dirty rag at my feet, demanding I start cleaning. He expected me to cry, to submit, but I didn't. I turned around in silence and signed the papers to sell the property. The next morning, that man crumpled to the floor, wailing, "My name is Lily, and I've been an accountant for over 7 years. The nature of my work has instilled in me a meticulous attention to detail, a cautious approach, and a belief that numbers must always be clear and precise. Perhaps that's why I've always wanted every aspect of my life to be just as orderly. Since I first started working, I've been diligent, saving every dollar for my future. My parents are retired civil servants, frugal their entire lives. They loved me, their only daughter, and couldn't bear the thought of me living in precarious rented apartments after getting married. So, they withdrew their entire retirement savings, combined it with the proceeds from selling a plot of land from my maternal grandparents, and bought me a high-end condominium in a new development in Chicago's West Loop. The title was in my name alone, a premarital asset. When my parents handed me the deed, they told me this was my security, my safe harbor, a place I could always retreat to when the storms of life hit. Receiving this immense gift, built from the sweat and tears of my parents, I promised myself I would cherish and care for it. At the time, Mark and I had just gotten our marriage license and were planning the wedding. Mark was a project coordinator from a small, rural town in the Midwest. His family wasn't well off. I fell in love with him because I saw him as a kind, ambitious man who was a smooth and charming talker. When he learned my parents had bought me a condo, he was ecstatic, showering me with promises to work hard and take care of me for the rest of my life to repay my family's kindness. The condo was delivered as a shell. Everything from the electrical wiring and plumbing to the drywall and flooring had to be done from scratch. Not wanting to burden my parents any further, I decided to use the entire $150,000 of my personal savings to cover the design and construction costs. This was money I had earned through countless late nights, taking on freelance bookkeeping for small businesses for years. Every tile for the kitchen backsplash, every plank of white oak flooring, I chose myself. To prevent theft of materials, I even installed a small security camera in the living room. From the custom window treatments to the dining set, I personally and meticulously selected everything. I wanted our nest to be perfect, a reflection of warmth and permanence. For 3 grueling months, my days were a constant race between my office and the construction site. During my lunch breaks, I'd rush over on the L train to check on the electricians and plumbers. After work, I'd head straight back to watch the carpenters install the kitchen cabinets, sweeping up piles of sawdust and debris myself. I'd come home covered in dust, drenched in sweat. But the thought of moving into our beautiful new home made all the exhaustion melt away. Throughout this period, Mark was rarely around. I had given him the keypad code early on so he could check in when needed. He claimed that work was hectic with the end-of-year rush, that he was swamped with business trips and client dinners. I, ever the supportive fiancé, trusted him. I thought he was working hard for our future, so I never complained. I told myself that by shouldering the burden of the renovation, I was freeing him up to focus on his career. A harmonious marriage would be our greatest blessing. Yesterday evening, the professional cleaning crew finally left, leaving behind a sparkling, pristine apartment. The gentle scent of new wood mixed with the warm glow of the recessed lighting made my heart swell with an indescribable happiness. I double-checked the new smart lock code, ran my hand over the soft leather of the living room sofa, and smiled with deep satisfaction. Our home was finally complete. I took out my phone, snapped a few pictures of my favorite spots, and sent them to Mark on WhatsApp with a joyful message. I told him the house was finished and spotless. I asked him to clear his schedule this weekend so we could pick a move-in date, which would make planning the wedding next month much easier. The message showed as delivered, but there was no reply. I tried calling. The line went straight to a cold, automated voice. "The person you are calling is unavailable." I frowned, a flicker of disappointment crossing my mind, but I brushed it aside. He was probably in a meeting or out with his boss, and his phone had died. I locked the door carefully, carrying my elation with me back to my old rental, eagerly anticipating surprising him with a finished place the next morning. I had no idea that the door I had just closed was about to open into the biggest storm of my life. The next morning, a cold, drizzly Chicago day dawned. I woke up at the crack of dawn, a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I hadn't heard from Mark all night. The WhatsApp message still showed, delivered, not read. My calls were met with an unnerving silence. A woman's intuition told me something was wrong. I threw on a coat, grabbed my keys, and drove straight to the condominium building. Standing in front of my apartment, 12-5, I took a deep breath to steady myself. I placed my index finger on the fingerprint scanner of the smart lock. A harsh beep sounded, and the LED flashed red, signaling an error. I flinched. Thinking my finger was damp from the rain, I wiped it on my coat and tried again. A second time, then a third. The lock remained stubbornly unresponsive, emitting a series of curt, rejecting beeps. A sense of dread began to creep in. I switched to the keypad, typing in the code my birth date that I had personally set just yesterday. The keypad lit up as I carefully entered the numbers. The result was the same, a long, drawn-out tone of denial. The screen displayed a warning. Incorrect passcode entered multiple times. A chill ran down my spine. The fingerprint scanner could malfunction, but the numeric passcode couldn't just erase itself overnight. Suddenly, I remembered the backup mechanical key I always kept in my purse. I fumbled through my bag, my hands trembling, until I found it nestled in a zippered pocket. I took the longest key and inserted it into the keyhole, cleverly hidden at the base of the door handle. But once again, a cruel reality struck me. The key wouldn't go all the way in. The internal tumblers had been completely changed. Someone had removed my entire lock cylinder and replaced it with a brand new one. I took a step back, staring in disbelief at the polished bronze number plate on the door. It was 12-5, on the familiar 12th floor hallway I had walked countless times over the past 3 months. Behind that oak veneer, fire-rated door lay all my hard work, my money, and my hopes for a family home. And now, here I was, locked out, a stranger, unable to enter the very property I legally owned. In that moment, my concern for Mark's safety was eclipsed by a much more terrifying fear. Why was the lock changed? Who had the authority and the ability to do it overnight after I had locked up and the contractors had handed over all the key cards and master codes to me? The building management wasn't allowed to interfere with a resident's private property without the owner's consent. Besides me, there was only one other person who knew the original code, Mark. I pulled out my phone and tried calling him again. Still, the same unavailable message. Anger began to simmer in my chest. If it were a burglary, they would have broken the lock to steal things, not wasted time hiring a professional locksmith to rekey the cylinder and reset the entire electronic system. This was a deliberate, calculated, and brazen act. I clenched my fist and knocked 3 hard, hollow sounds on the door. The noise echoed down the silent hallway. I pressed my ear against the wood, listening for any sign of movement. The silence from within was eerie. Just as I was about to turn and go down to the lobby to ask the concierge to check the security footage, I heard a faint click from inside the lock. The heavy deadbolt retracted. The door creaked open. My heart skipped a beat. I stepped back, bracing myself for whatever I might face. But the scene that unfolded before me was something that, even with the wildest imagination, I could never have anticipated. The door swung open to reveal Mark. He was still in wrinkled pajamas, a groggy expression on his face that quickly morphed into a flicker of guilt, then settled into a mask of nonchalant indifference. But it wasn't Mark's presence that stunned me into silence. It was the scene behind him. The neat, immaculate living room from yesterday now looked like a cluttered storage unit. In the middle of the gleaming white oak floor sat 2 filthy, oversized duffel bags and a styrofoam cooler, bound with duct tape, leaking a foul-smelling, murky liquid that reeked of old fish. A few tattered tote bags were strewn carelessly nearby. Draped over the expensive, imported Italian leather sofa I had cherished were a couple of cheap jackets and a wide-brimmed straw hat. From the kitchen, an older woman emerged. She wore a dark, floral print housecoat, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. In her hand, she held a grimy-looking dish towel. It was Sharon, Mark's mother, my future mother-in-law. She ambled out, her eyes scanning the room with a critical, appraising glare. When she saw me standing at the door, she showed no surprise, only a cold dismissiveness. "Oh, you're here," Sharon said, her voice sharp. "Close the door on your way in. Don't let all the dust and street noise in." I stepped inside, Struggling to keep my voice even, I turned and looked Mark straight in the eye, demanding an explanation. Mark, what is going on? I said through gritted teeth. Why was your phone off? Why is your mother here with all this stuff? And most importantly, why did you change the locks and the code to my house? Mark rubbed the back of his neck and walked over, patting my shoulder with a patronizing air. His tone was smooth, as if he'd rehearsed this speech. Honey, the house is done, so we were going to move in eventually, right? I had a locksmith come yesterday to change the lock for better security. And while I was at it, I brought Mom up from the country to come live with us for good. She's getting old, and she's all alone back home. As her eldest son, it's my duty to take care of her. I was afraid you'd overthink it and object, so I just went ahead and made it happen. He continued, I have the new key. From now on, I'm the head of this household. You just focus on your job. Mom will handle things at home. Listening to his words felt like being doused with ice water. The audacity was breathtaking. He spoke of moving his mother in permanently, of stripping me of my access and ownership with such casual entitlement, as if he were the one who had paid for and renovated this entire condo. Sharon walked over and slapped the dirty cloth down on the marble coffee table I had custom ordered from Italy. She sneered. Good grief, she griped. What kind of design is this? It's as cold and sterile as a morgue. The walls are stark white, the lighting is dim. And this furniture, she scoffed, poking the sofa that had cost me nearly $8,000. Sinks in so much it'll break your back. Mark, honey, you need to call someone this afternoon to haul this thing to the dump. Make some space. We can get a nice big recliner, or just put a rug down over there. Something comfortable and easier to clean. My chest tightened. She was talking about throwing out my brand new sofa. But she wasn't finished. She pointed a finger toward the master bedroom. That biggest room, the one with the big window overlooking the street. I've already moved my things in there, she announced. It gets the best light. It's airy, perfect for an old woman like me. You two are young. You can squeeze into that smaller bedroom next to it. Don't be selfish and argue with your elders. My patience evaporated. That master suite was where I had a custom king-size bed made from solid walnut, where I designed a walk-in closet and a makeup vanity for us. The moment she arrived, she had simply claimed it, treating me like a tenant in my own home. This brazen invasion wasn't an accident. It was a calculated power play, orchestrated by both mother and son, to seize control from day one. I stood frozen in the middle of the living room, looking around at the home I had poured my blood, sweat, and tears into building. The pristine oak floors were now scarred with black scuff marks from their shoes. The foul odor from Sharon's cooler mingled with the scent of new wood, creating a nauseating, suffocating atmosphere. Rage surged through me, but the rational mind of an accountant held me back from screaming. I turned to Mark, my gaze sharp as a razor. Mark, I said, enunciating each word with chilling clarity. Let me remind you, my parents bought me this condo before we were even legally married. The title is in my name alone, the entire renovation, all the furniture that came from my savings. You didn't contribute a single penny. I leaned in. So, what gives you the right to change the locks? To bar me from my own home and brazenly move your mother into the master bedroom? Do you not see how outrageous and disrespectful your actions are? At the mention of money and ownership, Mark's face flushed with wounded pride. He waved his hand dismissively, launching into a lecture filled with hollow platitudes. Don't you start with all that money talk, he snapped. When you're married, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours. What's this nonsense about separate property? Are you really going to be that calculating with your own husband and mother-in-law? My mother struggled for decades to raise me. Now that I have a decent home, bringing her here to repay her is the natural, honorable thing to do. Filial piety comes first. As a daughter-in-law, you need to learn your place and listen. Don't pull that privileged city girl attitude here. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. From now on, my mother makes the rules in this house. Sharon, emboldened, scurried over to the corner of the balcony and picked up a grimy rag. It was one the drywall contractors had used to wipe up plaster, caked with hardened cement and white dust. I hadn't had a chance to throw it out yet. She handed it to Mark, giving him a knowing, meaningful glance. Mark took the dust-caked rag and, without a moment's hesitation, threw it directly onto the floor at the tip of my shoes. Drywall dust puffed up into the air. He jutted his chin at it, his voice dripping with the condescension of a master. The place is a mess. How can you just let it be like this? My mother is older, Her respiratory system is weak. She can't be around all this dust. Change your clothes, take this rag, and clean the entire apartment. Get all her things put away properly. Now, you're a wife now. You need to roll up your sleeves and get to work. Are you just going to stand there and argue? Looking at the cement-stained rag at my feet, at Mark's arrogant expression and Sharon's triumphant smirk, I felt something inside me shatter. Love, respect, my belief in a happy marriage, it all disintegrated like crushed glass. This house, which was meant to be our sanctuary, had become their tool to trample on my dignity. They didn't see me as a wife or a partner. They saw me as a fool with money, an unpaid servant to cater to their selfishness and greed, a man who used honor to justify his avarice, a mother-in-law who used her authority to crush her daughter-in-law from the very first minute. If I gave in today, the rest of my life would be a long, humiliating servitude in the very home I had built. I didn't shed a single tear. The pain had morphed into a terrifying calm. No arguments, no crying, no justifications. I slowly bent down and picked up the filthy rag. Mark smirked, thinking he had broken me. He was wrong. I walked to the elegant marble coffee table and gently placed the rag upon its surface. Then, I lifted my head high and looked Mark in the eye one last time. Without saying a word, I turned and walked, with long, decisive strides, out the door. I could hear him calling after me, but I ignored him. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the ground floor. As the doors closed, they severed my world from those greedy, conniving people forever. My mind became crystal clear. A plan precise, cold, and ruthless began to form in the mind of a chief accountant. Stepping out of the building, the cold wind whipped against my face, but a fire of determination burned within me. I walked directly to the coffee shop next door, chose a quiet corner, and took out my phone. The first person I called was Jessica. Jess has been my best friend since college. In stark contrast to my reserved nature, she is sharp, decisive, and has a brilliant business mind. She now runs a major, well-respected real estate agency in Chicago. Jess knows the law, the market, and most importantly, she never tolerates injustice. The phone rang 3 times before she picked up. "Hey, bestie. Calling so early? Getting pre-wedding jitters? You calling me to go dress shopping?" she chirped. I choked back the lump in my throat and got straight to the point. "Jess, where are you? I need your help with something urgent. It's about the condo in the West Loop." Hearing the gravity in my voice, her tone shifted instantly. "I'm at the office." "What's wrong, Lily? You sound like you've seen a ghost. Tell me everything, right now." I took a deep breath and recounted the entire morning's events, from Mark changing the locks and moving his mother in, to the final, humiliating act of throwing the rag at my feet. I relayed the story with a cold, detailed precision that surprised even myself. On the other end of the line, Jess was silent, but I could hear her sharp inhales and the distinct thump of her hand hitting her desk. "That son of a bitch," she hissed into the phone. "A gold-digging, opportunistic leech. He and his mother ganged up on you? Lily, don't you dare cry. You are forbidden from crying. Tell me what you want me to do. Just say the word, and I'll send a team over there to clean house, literally." I looked out at the bustling city street, my gaze hardening. "Jess, I'm not going to fight with them or scream at them. It's beneath me. I want to sell the house. Right now. The market value is around $850,000. You know the business. I'll sell it to you for $700,000. Consider the loss the cost of the new furniture. The only condition is that you get me the cash by this afternoon, and we sign and notarize the transfer immediately. And tomorrow morning, I want you to go over there, as the new legal owner, and evict them. Can you do that?" There was a 3-second pause on the other end. Then Jess burst out laughing, a laugh filled with admiration and delight. "Lily, you really are my best friend. Decisive, clean, no loose ends. $700K? I can do that. My legal team is free this afternoon. You stay right where you are. Send me your location. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Have the original deed, your ID, and all the paperwork ready. We're going to handle this. I'm going to teach them what happens when they mess with one of my friends." I hung up and took a sip of my black coffee. The bitter taste shocked my senses back to life. Life is funny that way. You think you have something forever, but one long night can reveal the true nature of a person's heart. That condo was my dream, my sanctuary, but now it was tainted by greed and calculation. Keeping it would only bring me pain and disgust. The best way to punish those who exploit you is to legally and completely strip away their prize. I opened my purse and checked my documents, my ID, the original deed, everything was there. I'd been carrying them to apply for a new credit card. Everything was ready. A barely inked marriage license would not chain me to a toxic family. I would show Mark and Sharon that you can't just seize someone else's property through deceit. Karma doesn't spare anyone. Exactly 15 minutes later, Jess's Tesla pulled up to the curb. She stepped out, tall and commanding in a sharp business suit, a thick file folder in her hand. She strode in, gave my shoulder a firm, supportive squeeze, and sat down, her eyes glinting with the fire of battle. The turning point of my life began at that moment. Jess's car glided smoothly through the bustling streets of Chicago, taking us directly to a title company on LaSalle Street. In the passenger seat, I clutched my purse containing the deed and all my personal documents. The feeling was surreal. Just yesterday, I was dreaming of a home filled with laughter and warm family dinners. Now, I was on my way to liquidate that very dream. Jess glanced over from the driver's seat, her expression sympathetic. She patted my hand. "Don't regret this," she said firmly. "Cutting out a tumor is painful, but you only have to do it once. If you keep that condo, they will cling to you like leeches. I've been in real estate for years. I've seen every kind of property dispute imaginable. With your kind and patient nature, they would have just pushed you further and taken everything. I'm buying this as a flip, an investment. You get your capital back to take care of your parents." I nodded. Jess was right. My parents had sacrificed their retirement for me. I couldn't let their life savings become a free boarding house for people with no humanity. At the title company, the process was incredibly swift. Jess was a regular client, so our file was expedited. The closing agent verified my ID, the deed, and my marital status certificate. Because the condo's title was issued before Mark, and I signed our marriage license, it was unequivocally my separate, premarital property. I had the absolute right to sell it without his signature or consent. I took the pen and signed the deed transfer documents. The sale price was clearly stated, $700,000. As I signed my name and provided my thumbprint on each page, a massive weight lifted from my shoulders. The moment I was done, my phone buzzed. A text alert from my bank. A wire transfer of $700,000 had been deposited into my account. The transaction was complete, legally and transparently. Stepping out of the office, the afternoon sun was beginning to fade. Jess immediately called her property management division. She ordered 5 large, uniformed security guards to be present at my condo building at 6 a.m. sharp the next morning. She also told them to bring packing tape and boxes. After finalizing the arrangements, she turned to me and instructed me to check into a nearby hotel, turn off my phone, and open the door for no one. I took a cab to a hotel on Michigan Avenue and booked a quiet room on a high floor. The first thing I did was power off my cell phone. I needed complete silence to process the immense shock. Lying on the crisp, white sheets, I stared at the ceiling, recalling Mark's sweet promises when he proposed. He had vowed to protect me with his life, to make me the happiest woman in the world. Those honeyed words now felt like sharp knives twisting in my gut. But I didn't cry. Tears couldn't fix the cruelty in people's hearts. I closed my eyes, conserving my strength for the storm I had just unleashed. At 6 a.m. the next morning, my alarm clock woke me. I turned my phone on. The screen immediately lit up with dozens of missed calls and texts from Mark and Sharon. They must have realized I wasn't coming back for my clothes and had started calling to intimidate me. I smiled faintly, ignored them all, and opened WhatsApp to video call Jess. On the other end, Jess was already dressed in a sharp suit, holding a folder with a notarized deed and a copy of the sale agreement. "Get ready for the show," she said, waving at me through the screen. Behind her stood 5 imposing men in blue security uniforms, lined up in front of apartment 12. 5. "I'm having them knock now," she signaled to the guard in front. The man raised a powerful fist and began hammering on the fire-rated door. The thunderous thump-thump-thump echoed down the quiet morning hallway. After about 3 minutes of relentless knocking, the lock clicked. The door opened a crack, and Sharon's face appeared, her expression a mask of sleepy irritation. She was wearing a maroon silk nightgown, her hair a mess. "Who in God's name is making all this racket?" she shrieked. "It's the crack of dawn. Don't you have any respect for the elderly? Lily, is that you? Get out here and see who's causing this disturbance." Jess pushed the door wide open, causing Sharon to stumble backward. My best friend strode into the living room like a conquering hero, her security team following in formation. Sharon, terrified, clutched her nightgown. Who are you people? What is this? A home invasion. Jess didn't waste time arguing. She pulled the certified copy of the new deed and the sale contract from her folder and held it up for Sharon to see. Ma'am, I suggest you look closely, Jess announced, her voice booming with authority. My name is Jessica, and I am the new, legal owner of this condominium. Lily sold this entire property to me yesterday afternoon. You and your son are currently trespassing. I'm giving you exactly 5 minutes to wake him up, pack your trash, and get out of my house. Otherwise, my men will be happy to assist you. Sharon's eyes bulged as she stared at the official documents. Though she might not have understood the legal jargon, she recognized the power of a document with an official state seal. But her inherent stubbornness wouldn't let her back down easily. She threw her arms out, ready to make a scene. Thieves! Burglars! This is my son's house. My son Mark's. That wife of his sold it behind his back. Get out of here right now, or I'm calling the police. Jess laughed. A sharp, cutting sound. She gestured to her team. Immediately, the 5 men sprang into action. One grabbed the filthy duffel bags. Another hoisted the leaking, stinking cooler. The cheap jackets, the straw hat, even the worn-out plastic flip-flops were all swiftly carried out into the hallway. Sharon scrambled after them, trying to snatch her belongings back, but she was no match for their strength. In a matter of seconds, the living room was purged of the junk they had brought. The commotion finally woke Mark. He stumbled out of the small bedroom, rubbing his eyes. What the hell is all that noise? He grumbled. But when he opened his eyes and saw 5 strangers in uniform filling his living room, and his mother sitting on the floor wailing, he was instantly wide awake. He staggered into the center of the room, his eyes darting around. The luggage he had brought from home had vanished. The apartment was cold and empty. He turned and saw Jess, standing with her arms crossed and a faint smile on her face. He recognized her from a few dinners out with my friends. Jess? What are you doing here with all these people? Where's Lily? What have you done? Jess walked over and tossed the file containing the deed and contract onto the marble coffee table. Mark, open your eyes and read carefully, she said, her tone like steel. Lily sold this condo to me. The money has been transferred. The deed is filed. It's legal. You and your mother no longer have any right to be here. I suggest you collect your personal belongings and vacate the premises immediately. My demolition crew is scheduled to start tearing down walls in an hour. Hearing the words sold this condo, Mark's legs seemed to give out. He crumpled to the white oak floor, his knees hitting the wood with a dull thud. His face went ashen. He clawed at his hair, his eyes wide with disbelief. No, that's impossible, he stammered. He lunged for the file on the table, frantically flipping through the pages, his eyes landing on the notary's seal and my fresh signature. It can't be, he screamed, his voice cracking. How could she do this? Where's my house? Where's my house? I just changed the locks yesterday. I just brought my mother here to enjoy her golden years. Lily, you tricked me. Jess stepped closer, looking down at the pathetic man on the floor. Her words were like hammer blows, shattering the facade of false morality he had so carefully constructed. Your house? She scoffed. Did you put 1 dime into this place to have the right to call it yours? The purchase money was from Lily's parents' life savings. The renovation was paid for by her years of working overtime. You changed the locks, seized the master bedroom, and treated your own wife like a servant in her own home. A pathetic, gold-digging parasite like you. What right do you have to be the master of anything? You push the responsibility of caring for your mother onto your wife, then take all the credit for being a good son. A man as clever as you is a dime a dozen. Sharon scrambled in from the hallway and grabbed her son's leg, crying hysterically. She started spewing curses, calling me a disloyal, thieving wife who had stolen her husband's property. Jess didn't let them continue their melodrama for another second. She signaled to her men. 2 guards grabbed Mark under the arms while the other 3 escorted Sharon. They were half carried, half dragged out into the hallway and deposited next to their pile of smelly bags and leaking coolers. The oak veneer doors slammed shut in their faces. The sound of the deadbolt sliding into place was a final, definitive end to the greedy man's dreams of a new life. From my hotel room, I watched the entire scene unfold on my phone screen. A sense of vindication mixed with a twinge of sorrow washed over me. I turned off the phone, went to the bathroom, and splashed cold water on my face. I knew this wasn't over. People that selfish don't just accept defeat. They bite back. And just as I predicted, 10 minutes later, my phone began vibrating nonstop with notifications from a family WhatsApp group. The group, named the Clark family, suddenly erupted with activity. It had over 50 members, including Mark's grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins from his hometown. Normally, it was a quiet feed of birthday wishes and holiday greetings. Today, it was a war zone. The first thing I saw was a long, rambling message from Mark. It was a masterpiece of victimhood. He painted himself as a model husband, devoted and loving. He fabricated a story about how he had poured his heart and soul into building our shared home, from hiring contractors to personally overseeing the work. Then, he claimed, the wife he trusted had turned out to be a cruel, heartless monster. He accused me of having an affair and conspiring with my lover to sell our marital home and run off with the money. The pinnacle of his lies was a dramatic description of how I had hired thugs to break in at dawn, assault his elderly mother, and throw her out onto the street, leaving her a homeless, weeping mess in a cold hallway. He attached a photo of Sharon sitting on the floor, her face in her hands, crying next to the broken, leaking styrofoam cooler. Instantly, Mark's post ignited a firestorm of outrage from a family steeped in old-fashioned, patriarchal values that always defended their own, right or wrong. A flood of hateful messages filled my screen. His uncle, the family patriarch, typed in all caps. This family had the misfortune of welcoming this kind of trash as a daughter-in-law. A woman who steals and sells her husband's house should be tarred and feathered. Mark, sue her. Sue her for every penny. His aunt, who had frequently borrowed money from me and never paid it back, chimed in with venom. I knew the moment I saw her. She has shifty eyes. Poor Sharon. Raised a wonderful son only to be beaten and thrown out by that witch. A woman like that will burn in hell. Another uncle, a known alcoholic who was abusive to his own wife, had the audacity to lecture me on morality. Women today have no shame. When you marry a man, you belong to his family. Any property becomes the family's property. For her to sell it, the police should arrest her. Mark, come home. We'll find you a good, obedient girl. There are plenty of fish in the sea. I read each message, my disgust reaching a boiling point. These were the same relatives who had fawned over me at our engagement party, praising me endlessly when they found out I owned a condo in the city and had a stable professional job. The hypocrisy of the entire clan was nauseating. They didn't care about the truth. They just needed an excuse to tear down an outsider and rally around their own. Mark's victim playing was masterful, transforming him from a property thief into a pitiable, wronged husband. A weaker woman might have crumbled under such a vicious onslaught. But I am an accountant. I operate on facts, on figures, on hard evidence, not on tearful theatrics. It was time to extinguish this fire of lies with the coldest, hardest truth. I sat cross-legged on my hotel bed, opened my laptop, and connected it to my phone. I created a new folder on my desktop and named it, simply, The Truth. Inside, I organized the evidence I had prepared, a logical, irrefutable sequence designed to demolish every one of their accusations. Exhibit A, a crystal-clear scan of the property deed. It showed my name as the sole owner. I used editing software to draw a red circle around the date of issuance, 3 full months before Mark and I had signed our marriage license. This was the first undeniable blow, proving it was a premarital asset. Exhibit B, my complete, certified bank statements for the past 3 months. I highlighted every single transaction, wire transfers to the general contractor, payments to the plumber and electrician, charges for furniture and appliances. The debits totaled exactly $150,000, all originating from my personal savings account. There was not a single transaction, not 1 cent, from any account belonging to Mark Clark. This shattered his lie about contributing to the renovation. But Exhibit C was the kill shot. To prevent theft of materials during the build, I had secretly installed a small, high-definition security camera disguised as a smoke detector in the living room ceiling. It recorded crystal-clear video and audio. I exported the footage from the previous day. The video showed, in excruciating detail, Mark unlocking the door with a new key and letting his mother in. It captured Sharon, sneering at the furniture and throwing the dirty cloth on my new table. And then, the most damning part, the camera recorded Mark picking up the cement-dusted rag, throwing it at my feet, and barking orders at me to clean the house and serve his mother. The audio was perfect, capturing the arrogant, abusive, and greedy nature of both mother and son. I compressed these 3 files into a single folder. I typed a short, sharp message to the Clark family. I invite you to review these documents, watch this video, and listen to the audio. Then you can decide for yourselves who the real thief is. I have legally sold my own property. As for your precious son, he can expect to be served with divorce papers shortly. I will now be leaving this group. I hit send and watched the upload progress bar hit 100%. Then, I selected leave group. I didn't need to wait for their reactions. I could already picture them, their mouths agape, staring in stunned silence at the irrefutable evidence on their screens. The cacophony of angry messages would cease. The entire group of 50-plus people would fall silent. The hard evidence had exposed Mark's despicable true nature, ripping away the victim mask he had just put on. The silence of his family would be the most humiliating verdict of all. The virtual storm had passed, but the real-world hurricane of public opinion and its effect on Mark's career was just beginning to form. And Jess would make sure it made landfall. The silence in the Clark family WhatsApp group was merely the calm before a much larger storm. Jess, my formidable best friend, was never one to let an injustice against me slide. As a real estate professional, she understood the devastating power of social media. That afternoon, as I was packing my belongings at the hotel, Jess called me, her voice electric with triumph. "Open up Facebook," she said. I just gave Mark and his mother an unforgettable gift. I did as she said. The first thing on my feed was an article being shared at lightning speed across several large Chicago community groups. The headline was sensational, written in bold red letters. Husband changes locks to size wife's condo for his mother. Wife quietly sells the house the next day. The article didn't use our real names or the specific address, but the details were unmistakable. It told the story of a wife who used her $150,000 in savings for renovations, of a husband who changed the locks, of a mother-in-law who seized the master bedroom and threw a cement-caked rag at her daughter-in-law's feet. And all the evidence I had sent to the family, the premarital deed, the bank statements, and especially the high-definition security camera footage were embedded in the post. The faces in the video were blurred, but Mark's build and arrogant voice and Sharon's shrill tone were perfectly clear. The reaction was explosive. Within hours, the post had tens of thousands of likes, thousands of comments, and shares. Public outrage boiled over. Women from all walks of life flooded the comments, condemning the husband's parasitic, entitled behavior. "A man who uses filial piety to steal from his wife is the lowest form of scum," one comment read. "This wife is my hero," read another. No tears, no drama. Just a clean, brilliant checkmate. Sell the house. Kick the leeches to the curb. A perfect lesson for any man who thinks he can live off a woman's hard work. The story became a cautionary tale, debated furiously across the internet. But for Mark, the worst was yet to come. The world is a small place. Despite the blurred faces, the distinctive striped shirt Mark was wearing in the video, combined with his unique voice, was quickly recognized by people who knew him. He worked for a mid-sized construction project management firm, and his colleagues were active in many of the same online community groups. Soon, the link to the story was being passed around the office in whispers and private messages. Jess texted me an update from a friend of hers who worked in the same office building as Mark. That afternoon, when Mark walked into work after his traumatic morning, he was met with a barrage of strange, cold stares. Female colleagues, who were usually friendly now, turned their backs on him, their lips curled in disgust. The men whispered behind his back. When he went to the break room, a group of 4 people immediately dispersed, unwilling to share the same space with a man now infamous for mooching off his wife. Mark, who had always been so proud and boastful of his success, had become a laughingstock. The image he had carefully crafted of a successful, family-oriented man was in ruins. The social shunning at his workplace was a severe psychological blow, striking directly at the fragile ego of a man who lived behind a facade. The court of public opinion had done its job, backing him into a corner. Around 8 p.m., as I was sipping hot tea in my hotel room, the phone rang. It was the front desk. "Ma'am, there is a gentleman in the lobby claiming to be your husband. He's causing a bit of a scene and is demanding to see you. Should we have security escort him out?" I calmly replied, "No, that's all right. Let him wait. I'll be right down." I knew Mark's personality. Cornered and humiliated, he would grasp at any straw, even if it was the very person he had just abused. I changed into a smart dress, let my hair down, and took the elevator to the lobby. As the doors opened, I saw him. He was a wreck. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair was a mess, and his eyes were bloodshot from stress and lack of sleep. The moment he saw me, he scrambled toward me like a drowning man lunging for a life raft, reaching for my hands. I took a sharp step back, crossing my arms, my gaze like ice. Without a second's hesitation, Mark let his arms fall to his sides and dropped to his knees on the cold marble floor of the hotel lobby. A few guests stopped to stare, but he had shed all semblance of pride. He began his pathetic, tear-filled performance. "Lily, I'm so sorry," he sobbed. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please forgive me. Please, take down that post online. My colleagues are shaming me. My boss is starting to notice. I've lost all face, Lily. Please." I looked down at his tear-streaked face. I felt no pity, only profound contempt. A grown, able-bodied man, resorting to public groveling to evade responsibility. "Get up," I said, my voice flat. "Crying here won't solve anything. Yesterday, when you threw that rag at me, when your mother was cursing me, you were so brave, so commanding. Why are you so pathetic now?" At the mention of his mother, Mark saw an escape route. He immediately started shifting the blame. "Lily, believe me, I didn't want any of this," he pleaded, his voice desperate. "It was all my mom. She's old. She's senile. She was the one who pushed me to change the locks. She forced me to bring her here, said it was to train you as a wife. I'm her son. I couldn't just say no. But in my heart, I've always loved you. You're my wife. Please, talk to Jessica. See if you can buy the condo back. We can move in together. I promise. I'll send my mom back home tomorrow. I'll never let you suffer again." His excuses were nauseating. The filial piety he had preached at me yesterday was now something he was willing to discard without a second thought to save his career. He threw his own mother under the bus. A man this disloyal and dishonorable was not worth a single moment of my sympathy. His performance was so cheap, I didn't want to watch another second of it. I stepped back, creating more distance between myself and the filth on the floor. On a small table in the lobby was a glass of ice water. I picked it up and, without flinching, tossed the entire contents into Mark's face. The shock of the cold water made him gasp, cutting off his sobs. He looked up at me, stunned, as icy water dripped down his face, mingling with his fake tears. "Snap out of it," I hissed. "Your little drama is over. You think I don't know what you're really after? You're not kneeling here because you're sorry. You're not kneeling here because you love me. You're kneeling here because of that promotion to manage the new resort project up in Lake Geneva, aren't you?" When I mentioned the Lake Geneva project, all the color drained from his face. His eyes went wide, his mouth hung open, speechless. He was utterly dumbfounded, unable to comprehend how I knew his most critical secret. I gave a small, cold smile and proceeded to tear down his last defense. 2 weeks ago, while cleaning our old apartment, I had overheard him on the phone with his boss, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison was a well-known architecture and interior design enthusiast who valued employees with good taste and a stable family life. In that phone call, Mark had shamelessly boasted about how he had personally designed and overseen the renovation of a luxury condo. He claimed it was a testament to his management skills and creative vision. He had even eagerly invited Mr. Harrison for a personal tour, hoping to seal the deal for the multi-million-dollar resort project. I stared into his evasive eyes, exposing his vile ambition. "You use my money and my hard work to build a home. Then you claim the credit to impress your boss. You plan to steal my condo and use it as a stepping stone for your career. Now that the condo is gone, what are you going to show Mr. Harrison when your boss finds out his top candidate is a deceitful, gold-digging fraud? Do you think he'll entrust you with a major project? You only want me to buy the house back to prop up your pathetic charade. Don't you dare mention love or marriage to me ever again." My words, sharp as scalpels, cut through his final layer of deception. He slumped, completely defeated. His greed, vanity, and ambition had turned him into a monster. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry he got caught. I knew I had to finish this. If I let him go back to work and spin another story, he might salvage his career. I had to sever that lifeline myself. Seeing him dejected on the floor, I changed my tactic. The sweetest revenge isn't just denial. It's offering a glimmer of hope, only to snatch it away at the last second. I took a deep breath, softening my expression. "All right, get up," I sighed, feigning compromise. Making a scene here is embarrassing for both of us. I'm a woman. All I ever wanted was a peaceful family. If you're truly sorry and want to change, I can. Reconsider. At this sliver of hope, Mark's eyes lit up. He scrambled to his feet, dusting off his knees. His face transformed from despair to elation. He thought his manipulative tears had worked once again. Really? Lily? You mean it? He gushed. You'll call Jessica and buy the house back? I knew you still love me. You're the most generous person I know. I promise, from now on, I'll listen to everything you say. I'll give you my entire paycheck. I nodded, inventing a plausible excuse to lead him into my trap. I just signed the papers yesterday. Jess is my best friend. If I asked to cancel the sale and forfeit my deposit, she might agree. But the legal process will take a few days. The most important thing right now is your career. Your meeting with Mr. Harrison is tomorrow afternoon, isn't it? He nodded eagerly, his face full of hope. He confirmed his boss was scheduled to visit at 3 p.m. the next day. It was his do-or-die opportunity. Okay, I said, my voice firm. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll talk to Jess and borrow the key for a few hours. I'll be there, I'll have the place cleaned up, and I'll play the part of the supportive wife while you host your boss. You go ahead and impress him. Once you secure the project, we can talk about buying the house back. He completely bought it. His arrogance blinded him to my sudden change of heart. He thanked me profusely, made a string of empty promises, and left the hotel with a bounce in his step. Watching his retreating back, I smiled a cold, hard smile. He had sown the wind, and he was about to reap the whirlwind. The stage was set for a tragedy of his own making. The next afternoon, the sky was a pale, hazy gold. At 2:45 p.m., I sat in Jess's car, parked across the street from the condominium. Watching, Jess had told me her demolition crew had already started. They were knocking down the wall between the living room and the smaller bedroom to create a more open concept space. The sound of power drills and jackhammers echoed faintly down to the street. At 2:55 p.m., a black Mercedes sedan pulled up to the building's entrance. Mark got out first, looking immaculate in a tailored navy suit. His hair slicked back. He looked every bit the successful project manager. He respectfully opened the back door for his boss, Mr. Harrison, a man in his 50s with a commanding presence. Mark walked beside his boss, chattering animatedly. I could imagine his speech boasting about his unique design concepts, how he'd handpicked every tile and light fixture. Mr. Harrison listened, smiling politely. They entered the lobby and got into the elevator. I pictured Mark's smug confidence as he rode up to the 12th floor. He was expecting an immaculate apartment, a platter of fresh fruit, and me, the dutiful wife, smiling and greeting his guest. His perfect family play was about to win him the promotion of a lifetime. As they stepped out onto the 12th floor, the hallway was filled with a deafening roar of construction coming from apartment 12 of 5. Mark frowned slightly but quickly composed himself, turning to his boss with a reassuring smile. He walked to the door and rang the bell. My wife is probably just doing some last-minute tidying up, he said loudly over the noise. The soundproofing is excellent, though. It'll be perfectly quiet once we're inside. She's a fantastic cook and a wonderful hostess. Please, make yourself at home. The heavy door creaked open. Mark plastered on his brightest smile, ready to step into his kingdom. But the smile froze on his face. The person behind the door was not his meek wife. The scene inside was not a luxurious home. It was his worst nightmare come to life. The final act had begun. The oak veneer door swung open, revealing a scene of utter chaos. Dust filled the air, thick and hazy. The deafening roar of a jackhammer tearing into a concrete wall assaulted their ears. Standing in the doorway was not me, but Jess, dressed in a blue jumpsuit, a hard hat, and a dust mask covering half her face. She stood with her arms crossed, her sharp eyes staring down the two stunned men. Mark's smile vanished, his facial muscles twitching. He blinked, trying to see through the dust. Behind Jess, 3 workers were swinging sledgehammers, demolishing the wall between the living room and bedroom. Chunks of plaster and drywall rained down. The elegant sanctuary he had boasted about was now a chaotic demolition zone. Jess, what the hell are you doing? He yelled over the noise, his voice panicked. He glanced helplessly at Mr. Harrison, who was frowning, waving dust from his face. Mark, Mr. Harrison said, his voice low and serious. What, exactly, is going on here? Is this the apartment you designed? Before Mark could invent another lie, Jess calmly pulled down her mask. She reached inside and picked up an iPad, which was on a live video call with me. I had been watching the entire time from the car. Jess then stepped forward, presenting Mr. Harrison with the certified deed and the notarized bill of sale. "Mr. Harrison, a pleasure to meet you," she said, her voice cutting through the din. "I'm Jessica, and I am the sole, legal owner of apartment 12A5. This home was designed and paid for by Lily, Mark's ex-wife. It was her premarital property. Yesterday, she sold it to me, and as you can see, I'm currently renovating it to my own taste." Mr. Harrison took the deed, his eyes scanning the official seals and signatures. It was irrefutable. He handed it back to Jess, his gaze shifting from surprise to cold fury as he stared at Mark. Jess continued, relentlessly exposing every lie. She explained how Mark hadn't contributed a penny, how he had planned to use his wife's property to trick his boss and secure the Lake Geneva project. She even detailed his cruel treatment of me, the changed locks, the mother-in-law, the dirty rag. Mark stood frozen, his face as white as a sheet. He tried to speak, but no words came out. The elaborate web of lies he had spun was torn to shreds, revealing the rotten, selfish core beneath. The atmosphere in the hallway was thick with tension. For Mark, the most terrifying sound was not the jackhammer, but Mr. Harrison's thunderous silence. Mr. Harrison was a self-made man who valued integrity above all else. To him, a man who couldn't respect his own wife was incapable of leading. To be lied to so blatantly was the ultimate insult. He stepped toward Mark. "Mr. Clark," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "In my 30 years in business, I've met many talented people, and many devious ones. But someone who steals his wife's hard work to get ahead, who concoct such a shameless lie to deceive his superiors. You are a rarity. Did you think I was some senile old fool you could lead by the nose? A man who would steal from his own family is not a man I can trust with a multi-million-dollar project." Mark lunged forward, grabbing his boss's sleeve. "Sir, please, let me explain. It's a misunderstanding." Mr. Harrison yanked his arm away in disgust, taking out a handkerchief to wipe the spot Mark had touched. "The company pays you for your labor, Mr. Clark, not for your lack of character. I am officially revoking your candidacy for the Lake Geneva project. Furthermore, you are terminated, effective immediately. Be at HR tomorrow morning to sign your final paperwork. Do not ever let me see your face again." With that, Mr. Harrison turned and strode to the elevator without a backward glance. Mark stared after him, his entire world collapsing. His career, his future, all gone. He staggered, then fell to his knees on the cold tile floor, letting out a strangled, animalistic cry of despair. Jess stood in the doorway, watching him with cold indifference. She signaled to the workers inside. The deafening roar of the jackhammer started up again, drowning out the pathetic sobs of a broken, greedy man. The very next morning, I went to a top divorce attorney Jess had recommended. I filed for a unilateral, no-fault divorce. The case was straightforward. At the first mediation session, Mark showed up looking haggard and defeated. He stubbornly refused to sign, demanding half of the $700,000 from the sale of the house, claiming it was a marital asset. My lawyer calmly dismantled his fantasy. He presented the premarital deed, the bank statements proving I alone had paid for the renovations, and the USB drive with the video of Mark's verbal and emotional abuse. The judge, seeing the mountain of evidence and the irretrievable breakdown of the marriage, quickly sided with me. On the day the divorce was finalized, the judge's voice echoed through the quiet courtroom. My request for divorce was granted. All property and proceeds from the sale were affirmed as mine alone. Mark's claims were dismissed entirely. As I walked out of the courthouse, a free woman, the sun broke through the clouds. A chapter of my life had closed, not with tears, but with the quiet, steely satisfaction of justice served.